Fred here, welcome back to the Gear Obsession channel. I'm looking for an EDC camera, something I could put in harm's way that's not very expensive. This camera right here that you're watching me is an HDR Zx5 made by Sony. You know, it's a 1080p, all the bells and whistles, great camera, but not something I want to put in harm's way, not something I want to carry around with me all the time. So I think I found a really good Worthy EDC camera, and I'm going to tell you about it. For most people, the first thing that comes to mind are those Cisco flip cams. Real nice, handy, easy to carry around, not too expensive, pretty good camcorders. But guess what? They're getting discontinued. Also, the Sony Bloggies, those are pretty good, but they tend to be a little pricey. And the downside to all of these are that they really cannot withstand a lot of abuse. And if I'm going to carry something around EDC-wise, camcorder, and put it in harm's way, it has to meet some criteria. It has to be waterproof, it has to be dustproof, it has to be shockproof. And I think I found the solution in the Kodak PlaySport Zx5. Here's the box. I already opened it up. Comes in all kinds of neat colors like red, black, blue, you know, but I like tactical, get the black. So let me go ahead and show it to you real quick. I'm not going to waste time doing an unboxing, but here is what it looks like. Looks like your typical flip cam. It does not have a zoom. Most of these don't have any kind of real zoom. They have a digital zoom, usually about 5 times, but not optical. But this one is autofocus, not fixed focus. So that's pretty good. So it's able to do a little bit of macro. Now I'm going to go ahead and lift my notes here and make sure that I cover everything. It also has an adjusting view screen. This screen back here, which I'll show you in a minute, depending on the lighting, could get brighter and darker depending on the ambient lighting. It's capable of 720p in both 30 and 60 frames a second, so you could get a little bit of slow motion, high action kind of shots in there. And it's also capable of 1080p, 30 frames a second. So what makes this EDC worthy for me? I did say it was waterproof. It's waterproof down to 10 feet for 2 hours. It's also dust proof, so you don't got to worry about dust, dirt, mud, and all that good stuff. It's also shock proof. You could drop this from 5 feet, and I already did, and fortunately it still works. So I've already tested that. It works fine. Now again, I said it comes in blue, red, black. Retails for the unbelievable high price of $180. Kind of high for your typical flip cam, but I found it for $120. So if you look hard enough, you're going to find some good bargains on places like Amazon. Just trust me, look. There are some cons to this. Let's go ahead and talk about them. First, in the box, you get your typical wall wart to charge it up, and you have a micro USB cable that you sort of plug into the wall wart, and you plug it in and it charges. As it's charging, the power button here on the top will blink, 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 and then when it's all charged up, it goes steady. You can leave it in, it's not going to burn itself up. It knows when to stop charging. All good to go. So the way that you charge it is it has these wings. We'll go ahead and flip up both doors here. On one side you have the USB, micro USB that you plug that cable in. And you also have a micro HDMI cable, which Kodak was totally cheap, wimped out, pissed off about. They gave you this little thing that says, hey, send away for it, we'll give it to you for free, plus shipping and handling. That's weak, Kodak. Give me a break. Anyway, I'm probably not going to use that feature, but what this means is there's no articulating USB arm like you have on the other flip cams, so you have to remember to carry that cable around. Another thing is that the battery is not removable, but the battery in this thing lasts over 2 hours, and personally, like this camera and most other cameras and even my cell phone, I never end up taking the battery out and changing it anyway. So for me, I don't think it's a big deal. I'm going to go ahead and close this door. Before I do it, by the way, you can see that there's a nice rubber gasket in there. So when you close that, it seals it, so it makes it waterproof, dustproof, all that good stuff proof. Now on the other side, you have a slot right here that you are going to put your not included SD card. This thing comes with a measly 128 megabits of memory in there. It's almost worthless, you can't use it, but you could put up to a 32 gig SD card. So I'm going to go ahead and just pop that in there, and we'll push it in there. You really got to get it in there pretty good. Make sure it sort of clicks in, and then you close it. Again, there's a rubber gasket right in here, and we'll close it and snap it closed, and you're all ready to go. So let's go ahead and power it on, and I'll show you what it looks like. Power button again is on the top, and there you go, and you can see me. Hello. Oops, hope I didn't break something there. So you can see that and it will adjust to ambient light right there. It has a little light sensor right up here, so we can adjust. I'll go ahead and just quickly go down menus. You can see you have a digital zoom capability. Again, when you start getting beyond 3 times on the digital, it starts getting all pixelated and everything, so it's really not worth messing with digital zooms. Just do it in your editing software. You also have a 1-button feature here that'll turn it into a 5 megapixel camera. You hit it again, it turns into the camcorder. You have other features like you could sort of play back things and watch it here. You have a delete button where you could only delete one item at a time, so you have to go sequence delete. You can't do a delete all. And then of course there is the menu where you can change a lot of different settings, including formatting the card, changing the resolution, changing focusing modes. You could do underwater correction when you're shooting underwater. Kind of some neat effects in there like sepia or whatever you call it, you know, where it's like an old style black and white version. There's also a microphone gain. All kinds of really basic features. You can set the date and time too. I mean, this is not a full-featured camcorder here. These are basic functions, what you would typically find in a flip cam. So we'll go ahead and try it out. You know, I want to show you what this looks like compared to what you're looking at now. I'm going to go ahead and take a picture of you really quick. I'll let you see how the light comes on the front and sort of hear what it sounds like when you're getting ready to videotape. So you ready? Say cheese. What? This is the Gear Obsession channel? Okay. Now I got to set the 720p. That's what I normally shoot all my video with. So now we'll go ahead and I'm going to hit the play button, and we'll go ahead and play it. Well, I thought I was going to play it. I got to hit the right button, sorry. What? This is the Gear Obsession channel? Okay. So, the other button that I failed to tell you about is this little share button right here. What it does is it sort of will tag videos as you take them, and you can program some software that's made by ArcSoft, which sort of comes on the camera, so when you plug it in via USB to your camera, it will install the software, and you could sort of program it to say, hey, tag it with going to Facebook, or tag it to go to YouTube or whatever. Sort of makes it easier to share things, but I don't really mess with that. The way that I usually transfer images is I plug in that USB cable, I put it in here, just read the SD card directly and import it into whatever software I use. It works flawlessly with Movie Maker within Windows, and it works flawlessly with iMovie on the Mac. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and switch cameras and let you see what the video looks like at the same resolution, 720p, using this. And you can see sort of a comparison between my good old standby Sony and the Kodak Zx5. Over the pond they say Z instead of Z. It's still cool, right? One other thing I failed to show you is the bottom of the camera. There is a tripod mount right there, so I'm going to go ahead and screw this to the tripod mount that goes onto this tripod here. Tried to. I'll get it. These things, some of these are aggravating. I wish they made these a little bit easier, but we'll go ahead and mount it so I can put it on the tripod so to get this camera in about the same position that I normally shoot with this one, so you do get a fair comparison. So here we are, 720p on my Kodak Zx5, and one of the things that's aggravating is I can't see my viewfinder like I do in my other one. I can sort of flip it out and look around. So I have to make sure I have this position just right before I hit the button, get over here, sit down. Some people have some tricks like putting a little X somewhere to center. I learned that from the Army channel actually. Now there's another neat little gadget that can go with this. It's made by Kodak. It's a little remote control. Unfortunately, it's not fully compatible with this version. It's more compatible with the first generation, which is the Zx3. Now, this is the Zx5, by the way. So anyway, the only functionality that works on this remote with this particular camera is the one that starts and stops it, which is really the only thing that's more important, that's important to me. For instance, I'm going to go ahead and turn you off. And I just turned you back on. Now when it turns on, I get a little beep and I get a little red light, so I know it's working. I don't have to go back there and look at it. So this is kind of handy. The range is kind of limited. I wouldn't expect it to work more than 5 feet, but still pretty good for situations like this. So I finally have an EDC camera that I could carry around that I'm not going to feel too bad putting in harm's way like an expensive camera. So when I do get out to the range, when I'm feeling a little better, right now my back is absolutely killing me. Let me tell you, I was at the ER. I was barely able to get into a wheelchair. That's how bad it was. And I might give you that story here this weekend. I'm not sure. I don't like to start complaining here on YouTube. I just like to review great products for you so you don't waste your money buying junk. So anyway, thank you very much. One other thing you might notice before I end this is that the sound of my voice is just a little bit tinnier than my other one, I notice, but also everything seems to be a little bit sharper, and the field of view in this camera is just a little bit wider than the widest opening on my other camera. So those are some of the audio and visual differences between the two cameras, which is no big deal. I don't mind a wide view. I could always narrow it down with video editing software. So, I don't know. Do you think it's a good deal? Personally, I think it's a 9 out of 10. There are the shortcomings. Again, no articulating built-in USB arm. They don't give you the micro HDMI cable, which is kind of bogus, and onboard memory is a weak 128 megabits, but you could throw in a 32 gig card, so you know that really fixes the issues. Oh, one other very important thing to mention is firmware. Now this camera came with the 1.03 firmware. If you have even earlier versions of firmware that's built into this, that's the software that's sort of built into the camera, there may be some freezing problems. And the way that you fix that is when you format the card in the camera, it creates some folders on there. So like when you pop it in your computer, you'll see your pictures, but you'll see a folder called System. And if you go to the Kodak website and search for firmware and Zx5, you'll be able to download the latest one, which in taping is the 1.06 version. And when you put that card back in the camera and turn it on, it'll say, oh, new firmware is detected. Do you want to install it? You hit yes, and life is good, and everything works as good as you're seeing it right now. So again, thank you very much for joining me here at the Gear Obsession channel. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. I highly recommend it if you're looking for a flip type cam, EDC camera. This is the answer as far as I'm concerned. So have a great evening, and I hope you keep on stopping by. I really appreciate viewers and subscribers and friends. I really, really do. Thank you. And again, have a great evening.